Hey YouTube, how's it going? I wanted to come back and make sort of another 6-scale action figure review slash comparison, this time between the Asmus and the ACI Aragorn. Now, I have owned both of these figures before, and I have sold both of them, and then I repurchased both of them and got them back in my collection. And when I was going back to get them into my collection, I noticed that there wasn't really too many direct comparison videos out there. And so I thought, I'll make one. Now, I will say this is actually my first time owning the slim edition of Aragorn. Previously, I had owned the original version that came with all the additional accessories and the beautiful Amon display base. I did purchase the upgraded head to go along with it though prior to selling it, so I've basically had this head sculpt prior to. And I do, let me find that here, I do still have the original Asmus Aragorn head sculpt, for what it's worth, so we could throw that into the comparison video as well. Anyways, let's get down to brass tacks. Here are the two figures side by side. And if we're going from top to bottom, you will immediately see that as strong as the sculpt is for the ACI Aragorn, that hair, that Ken doll Barbie hair that they gave it, really does take away from the figure. Now, I have mitigated some of the thickness, some of the poof, by using a lot of product. I basically did exactly what Clipper King did. He has a tutorial up on YouTube, and you could check that out. But as you can see, that is still just, I mean, it's not very accurate to Aragorn's hair. And I'm probably going to do a few more treatments, and that should mitigate some of that massive poofy look. Asmus, their Aragorn head, as far as the rooted herring goes on it, it's great. Asmus has been really pushing the bar with rooted hair technology, and this looks greasy, thick, mottled, and I mean, it's not sculpted hair, but I can do a lot with this head sculpt, and it's not going to mess up the hair. So I mean, for all intents and purposes, it has the durability of sculpted hair with the look of rooted hair, which it is. And that is pretty nice. I do like what Asmus is doing with rooted hair. And I guess we'll see all of that come to fruition when they release their Crown Series. Gandalf. It's going to be quite the figure to behold. And I'm looking forward to it. Anyways, so on to the head sculpts themselves. We have the Asmus Aragorn and the ACI Aragorn. Which one do I like more? Right now, looking at it, as far as just the sculpt goes, I really do think ACI nailed a really good Aragorn likeness. Under there is the paintwork on the beard. It's just not great. Maybe they went in a little too heavy with the wrinkles in his forehead, but that is a good looking Aragorn sculpt. And as much as I like the Asmus one, I don't know. I find myself being more drawn to the ACI Aragorn sculpt as a whole, even though I will admit that the paintwork, the skin tones, I don't know if it's going to come up on camera, but there's a very subtle reddening around the cheeks. Gosh, that is a good looking sculpt, and it might actually be better than the ACI one. I just don't think I like everything going on down here. This is the texture of beard without the paint of beard, and maybe that's what's throwing it off for me. I guess if we look at the original Asmus sculpt, is that gonna coming to focus on there. I'll put it right next. You can see that they did come in and paint much more fully on the beard, and I like that quite a bit. This sculpt was a keeper, but it was really handicapped by how they slapped the hair on that head. Aragorn does have a 5 head. The actor that plays him just has a big forehead, but that sculpted hair really took away from their original release of the figure, sadly. But we're past that now because we have some really good rooted hair sculpts coming out from Asmus. As far as the outfits go, again, I like ACI. I just really like how dirty it is. I like they captured the texture of what I think Aragorn's outfit looked and felt like, at least his overcoat here. And they translated that into 6 scale very, very well. Now, Asmus Aragorn, it's good. It's a thin plastic, or not plastic, but pleather material. It has these wires in it that I think are just kind of useless. I'd prefer them to drape naturally. I will be removing the wire in his coat for display purposes. I removed it on my original one. I just, I don't know. There is weathering on it, if that's coming through. It's not nearly as heavy as ACI's, or heavy-handed as ACI's weathering, but I don't know. I just like the overcoat of ACI's a bit more. What can I say? And I'm not meaning to trounce all over Asmus. They do really good stuff, and I am a huge fan of everything that they've done. I mean, they completed the Fellowship in 6 scale, and that has just been a pipe dream for a long time. No company was going to do that. But in terms of quality of work, I mean, look at the little tassels on ACI's Aragorn. They're just thinner, finer stranding on that under tunic. Here they're thicker. These just look better in terms of translating the actual outfit into a smaller scale, and I think that's very special. Also, in terms of just quick and easy posing, because I like to take my action figure out of the box and be able to put it on the shelf with too much futzing. I take out Aragorn and I want to move that arm up, pretend he has his sword in there, and here's the other one. He's holding that sword, and do you see just... Here, let me get the camera for a moment. There's just a lot of bunching up in there, and so I need to finagle it, futz it, pull that down a little bit. It sits well on the shoulders, and it's fine. But ACI, with whatever sort of with whatever sort of material that they used on their Aragorn coat, I can just pull the arm up. It's fine. It looks great. Good wrinkling. Pull it across. I'm not needing to finagle the outfit too much to have it look good. Also, I guess while we're talking about finagling and how much work you're going to have to do with these things, let's get to the elven cloaks that they both come with. Spin those guys around. Very different colors, you'll see right off the bat. The weathering on Asmus's is much more realistic. There's a good gradient. Maybe I just need to adjust my camera again. You see how it's darker down here and it slowly comes up into that earthy green. ACI's looks like a murder scene. So there's that. However, ACI's cloak does hang much better. In fact, here, I'll grab this real quick. ACI's feels much like the very same texture, same exact material as this other cloak that I have from Asmus. I think this is the elven cloak that came with their Boromir figure. So I'll probably just replace, when I break both of these figures down and put them together to make my own favorite best Aragorn, I'll just end up using this cloak, I think, because it has a good color, good green color, like the Asmus, but it hangs like the ACI. There is, however, no weathering. Perhaps I'll add that in. That should be easy enough. This one also has a wire in the hood, which makes putting the hood over his head easier to look good on the figure, which is another point that I'm about to get to. With the material that ACI has picked out, I can take this hood, put it on Aragorn's head, and, with minimal futzing, it sits pretty well on the guy. I mean, that looks okay, and I've hardly touched it. Asmus Aragorn, there's not a lot I can do to just make that look good. The hood's not great. That comes down to the material of the cloak. It hangs all right, but, hood down for that guy. Let's talk about the accessories real quick here. The elven necklace on ACI's Aragorn is much shinier. It stands out a bit more. On the Asmus one, it is a duller color plastic overall. The details are probably about the same. Not much of a difference there. I mean, they each have their pros and cons. It comes down to what you like as a collector. Swords are important in here. This Anduril is actually the letter opener, and I'm using that as a stand-in for a 6-scale Anduril. Because I did not get the special edition of the ACI. On the Slim Edition Aragorn from Asmus, there is a beautiful electroplated ranger sword, and it looks good, feels good, it has good weight. It is also, and I'll show you here in a second, let me pull out ACI's more accurate size. Aragorn's ranger sword was huge, and I think Asmus nailed it in terms of giving it a big overall appearance. There's some good heft to it. It's heavier also than the ACI sword, and yeah, it just looks better. So let's slide that into Aragorn's hand here. That's good. He has no issues holding it regardless of its heft. The ACI Aragorn can also hold a hefty sword, but as you can see, one of my pet peeves as a collector, they made the hilt of the sword too small to fit into at least his right gripping hand. His left gripping hand is a little bit tighter. There, I wedged it in there, but there, I pose it a little bit and it's going to come falling right out. And I can't stand that. So I did give the ACI Aragorn this heftier letter opener of Anduril, and he holds that one much better. But props to Asmus for making a figure that has adequately sized weapons for the hands, because I do not like, and they have been guilty of this before, getting an action figure and they cannot properly hold their accessories when you're getting them into a good pose for the display. All the weapons on the ACI version are smaller than the weapons included with the Asmus Aragorn, the elven sword here. But maybe you've noticed throughout this review that the Asmus Aragorn has some strings tied along his weapons to the belt in places. And that is actually to mitigate how the sword sheaths, the scabbard, is held onto the belt. Prior to tying that little loop on there, and also around here for the elven dagger, while these swords fit well in the hand, They do not fit so well in there. And it is heavy, a lot of weight by the pommel. And it would pull this down and then slide right out. And that was annoying, so tied a little bit of string to it and fixed that problem. No big deal anymore. But it is just one more thing that I felt I needed to do out of the box. And ideally, the less I have to do right out of the box, the better, the happier I am as a collector. I'm a busy guy. If I can open up a collectible, stick it into a pose, and get it into the display, then I am happier for it. Now, let's get on to... so if it's between the Slim Edition, I guess we'll close up on accessories here real quick. The Slim Edition of Asmus doesn't come with much. There's a pipe, a sword, his elvish dagger, and this smaller knife that fits into his sword sheath. The original Asmus figure came with a whole lot more. As I said, a beautiful Ammon Hen display base, diorama, bow, arrow, quiver, and a sleeping roll too, I think. Yeah. And those were all great accessories. So these two would be on more even footing were I looking at the original release. But as it stands, ACI Aragorn comes with more. He comes with the sword sheath, the same little dagger. Here's the sword. I just didn't put it back in the sheath. There's his smoking pipe. He does come with a torch, which is a unique enough accessory. It's cool having it. I've actually given it to the Asmus one to hold. Bow, arrows, quiver that can be strung across his back. Let me hold that up for you. See, bow, arrows, quivers. It's all good. So he does come with more, and you can store most of them on him without too much of a fuss. And I do appreciate that. So coming in here a little bit, the original Asmus Aragorn also had wonderful cloth boots that allowed for great ankle pivot, and especially the bodies that Asmus uses, the caustic plastic bodies, do only have single jointed knees. So they're hindered right there. So some of the hindrances of single jointed knees is mitigated by having ankles that can articulate very well. When I'm going for an awesome pose, I always start with the legs. I think that's the most important thing, getting the feet in a good firm stance. And with single jointed knees and ankles that have zero mobility, you're just not gonna be able to get into as dynamic a stances. Whereas the ACI Aragorn, the body that they use, while it is much thicker and I think less accurate for being a thicker, broader chested body, Aragorn was a pretty slim dude. Their knees are double jointed, so you can get Aragorn into some pretty dynamic stances with his legs there. I'm gonna mod both of these probably onto a true type before long anyways, but dynamic. The boots are still a hard, solid plastic, but if you're just looking at that from there, look at this boot, look at the Asmus ones. The painting on the ACI is just much better. The way that they separate where things should be a different texture, the stitching, the ropey cords holding the boots together. Whereas Asmus is just one solid color with some dry brushing thrown on it, and let's call it good, I guess. Those aren't great. Those are pretty good. And while I've seen in a lot of reviews for the ACI Aragorn, people talking about how the boots are solid and there's not much ankle rotation or ankle pivot that you can get out of it. Let me manhandle this real quick. If you're forceful with it, you can rock those ankles a bit. Yeah, and that's going to, there, hear that? There. That's going to help with dynamic poses. Not a chance. Not a chance doing that with the Asmus Slim Edition Aragorn. Just not going to happen. So there's my 2 cents on that. As for display bases, the Slim Edition, we already talked about the original, that awesome Ammon Hen base, but that's all you get with the Slim Edition. Little black Lord of the Rings generic base. The ACI base is nice. I can't put it to any particular scene, but it's a small diorama-esque little display base, and I like dioramas, so that's a plus to me. So yeah, this comparison is probably going to be completely moot in not too much time, because Asmus did just show pictures of the Helm's Deep Aragorn that they're going to be releasing. And that certainly looks like at least the sculpt that they've shown us, by far the best Aragorn head sculpt we have ever gotten in this scale to date. So that will probably be the best Aragorn to have on display, honestly. And with what Asmus is doing with rooted hair, I'm sure that'll work just fine too if they go that route. So I've got all the faith in the world in them as a company. For the time being, though, while this Aragorn does have a lot of strengths to it, including just improved technology, I'm going to be sticking with the ACI Aragorn for now. It's a good figure, and I really like having it in my collection. It looks good. And even though it came out about the same time, maybe just before the original Asmus one did, the Slim Edition came out a few years later, so they did benefit from some improved technologies. There's still some places where the ACI figure just holds up better. Let's get a shot of both of those hands real quick. So here we go. Compare those 2 rings. Now, the Asmus Aragorn does benefit from using a real gem kind of plastic stone set in there, and the ACI one is just a little painted bauble, but there's more detail on the ACI one, and it looks like he's wearing a ring, whereas if I rotate the Asmus hand, it's just, look at that. That's just like a sloppy painted silver line going around the hand. That's not good. Rotate that. I mean, he's wearing a ring on the Asmus or the ACI one, and that's good. That still holds up today. Absolutely. Here's the Asmus gloved hand. Yeah, that looks good. That looks all right. There's some seam lines in there on the hands that are a bit ugly to look at, but I mean, it's serviceable. It's passable. But look at the ACI one. That looks good. And that still holds up. Now, I do like the greaves on the Asmus version much better than the ACI one. These just look better painted, better texture, but I mean, those work too. They're not as good. I might swap the greaves over, but yeah, I gotta say, even with the Slim Edition and the improvements that Asmus made with that release of the figure, the ACI Aragorn is still the king for me, at least until that Helm's Deep one comes out, because that is going to be a hell of a figure, and Asmus is doing big things right now. Their Crown Series Gandalf might be the best 1/6 figure of all time, at least. I'm really looking forward to it. My current pick for the best, widely manufactured goat, the greatest of all time, is the DX13 by Hot Toys. That's one of my personal favorites, but the Asmus Crown Series Gandalf might unseat it. So, like I said, I have big hopes. I've been following Asmus since the beginning, and they're capable of good stuff. This is a great figure still. My personal preference lies with the ACI. And I'll do a bit of work and take the best of both pieces and probably put together one Aragorn that I think is the one Aragorn to rule them all, and then have a burner. But yeah, that's my 2 cents before I take these two guys apart and build my favorite Aragorn, my best Aragorn in my opinion. So anyways, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any opinions on the subject, I'd love to hear them. Go ahead and sound off in the comments. Once again, I'm bored here in quarantine, so if you want to get a dialogue going, I would love to just chat toys with you if you're a fellow collector. I've been in the game for a while, so it's fun to talk to other collectors, especially during these times. So thanks for watching. Stay healthy and happy collecting. Bye-bye.